Now, moving along to our voter fraud segment, over in the state of Pennsylvania, 3 former officials were just sentenced to prison for their roles in a scheme to steal a local mayoral election. And this scheme of theirs was rather audacious, involving dozens of individuals having their identities used, both wittingly and unwittingly, in order to request mail-in ballots and cast fraudulent votes. Let's go through the details of the scheme together, as well as how it was ultimately uncovered by the authorities. And as always, if you appreciate content like this, take a super quick moment to smash those like and subscribe buttons so this video can reach ever more people via the YouTube algorithm. Now, to start with, this story takes place over in Millburn, Pennsylvania, which is a relatively small borough located right outside of Philly. And in 2021, Millburn held an election for mayor. And before I give you the names of the 2 main candidates, there's one thing that I believe is worth mentioning to you in order to give you the proper context. Millburn has experienced a significant shift in demographics over the last 40 years. According to the 1980 census, this particular borough was over 90% white. But after 4 decades of immigration, the latest census, the one from 2020, shows that Millburn is now 7% white, 20% African American, and 63% Asian, with that Asian category being predominantly people from India, Pakistan, and especially Bangladesh. This change in demographics is being reflected in the town itself. For instance, the name of the main street in this town is called Sellers Avenue. It's named that after the founding family of this particular town, the Sellers family, who moved from Derbyshire, England, and settled this town all the way back in the 1700s. Now, however, if you go to that street, you might notice that it has a secondary name, Bangladesh Avenue, which is an obvious physical testament to the growing power of the local Bangladeshi community there. And this change, besides the street names and the local shops, is also being reflected in the local politics, which brings us neatly back to the mayor's race. In 2021, the incumbent mayor decided not to run for re-election, and therefore a primary had to be held. Now, Millburn is a Democrat stronghold, meaning in a practical sense that whoever wins the Democrat primary is the presumed winner of the general race. And in 2021, these were the 2 candidates in the Democrat primary. You had Mahabubul Tayyub versus Muhammad Nurul Hassan. Now, these 2 men had a lot in common. They were both about the same age, 47 and 48 respectively. They both came from the city of Chittagong in Bangladesh. After moving to the US, both of these 2 men lived in the same apartment building in Philadelphia, where they actually became friends with one another. Then they separately moved to Millburn, where they both became members of the Borough Council. They're also both naturalized US citizens. Now, after the primary election was held and all the dust was settled, Mr. Mahabubul Tayyub was declared to be the winner, and he received the Democrat nomination for mayor. However, his buddy, Mr. Muhammad Hassan, he did not take this defeat lying down, and instead, Mr. Hassan launched his own write-in campaign for the general election, meaning that Mr. Hassan's name would not appear as one of the official choices, but he was still out there trying to get enough people to write his name on their ballot so that he could still win. Mr. Hassan was supported in this effort of his by 2 other men. Both of these 2 other men were members of the Borough Council at that time. You had Mr. Muhammad Mansur Ali, as well as Mr. Muhammad Rafiqul Islam. If you include Mr. Hassan, these were the 3 men who wound up getting indicted for the scheme that they were about to enact in order to try and win the general election. Now, this scheme of theirs, it involved using Pennsylvania's very lax rules when it came to voter registration, as well as their lax rules when it came to the ordering of mail-in ballots. Here is how the Justice Department described it in their court filing. Quote, "The Pennsylvania Secretary of State's office operated an online voter registration website which was accessible to the public. Any person who accessed the voter registration website could either submit a new voter registration application or edit an existing voter's registration information as long as the person knew certain personal identification information about the voter. A person who provided such information about a voter on the registration website could change the voter's name, their address, and or their party affiliation, and or request a mail-in or absentee ballot. So basically, as long as you have some basic information about that particular voter, you can go to this website and you can change their official address on file, and then you can also order an absentee ballot in their name. And those ballots, by the way, would literally be sent anywhere. Quote, if the person accessing the registration website requested a mail-in or absentee ballot for the voter, such a person could ask for the ballot to be mailed to any address in the world. And so I'm already sure you can guess how the scheme of theirs played out. According to the indictment, They found people who lived outside of Millburn. They went on this Pennsylvania Secretary of State website and changed those people's registrations to make it look like they did live in Millburn. They ordered absentee ballots in these people's names. They collected those ballots. They filled them out with Mr. Hassan's name as the choice for mayor. They faked the signature, and then they sent them in. Now, in terms of where they were able to get these people's information from in order to do this process, there were two sources, according to the indictment. The first were friends and acquaintances. Quote, "To further this conspiracy, the men contacted friends and acquaintances whom they knew did not live in Millburn, told these non-Millburn residents that Mr. Hassan was running for mayor in Millburn, asked if they could register the non-Millburn residents to vote in Millburn, and then cast mail-in ballots for Mr. Hassan to be mayor. During many of these conversations, the men told their non-Millburn friends and acquaintances that they would not get in trouble as long as they did not vote in another election in November of 2021. Basically, they asked their friends for help, and if those friends agreed, then they would take their driver's license number, jot down the necessary information like the driver's license ID, their full name, their date of birth, their address, and whatever else was necessary. Then they would go over on the website to the online system, re-register them to be Millburn residents, then get their ballots. Now, if that wasn't bad enough, at least those people knew that this was happening. There was another subset of people who had no idea. Quote, "Mr. Hassan and Mr. Ali also conspired and agreed to use personal identifying information for other non-Millburn residents that they had obtained from other sources, such as Mr. Hassan's business, to register those non-residents as Millburn voters without the knowledge of those non-residents." Which is rather wild. I wasn't able to find out exactly what Mr. Hassan's business was in the community, but let's just say it's a roofing company. You get your roof done by Mr. Hassan, and then later that year, unbeknownst to you, you're suddenly voting for him for mayor in the general election, even though you don't even live in that town. I guess you get a little added value by roofing with Hassan. Regardless though, this scheme of theirs actually wound up not working. Even though they were able to register nearly 36 individuals using this method, it was not enough to steal the election. Mr. Hassan still wound up losing by 23 votes. However, the sudden spike in voter registrations between the primary and general election set off alarm bells. Also, because this was a small community, Mr. Tayyub, the other guy in the race, the guy who won, he knew some of the names of the people who were being registered, and he knew that those people did not actually live in Millburn. And so he understood right away what was happening. All right, just to pause here for a super quick moment, I'd like to introduce our sponsor and my own personal gold dealer, American Hartford Gold. Now, as soon as the latest round of tariffs hit, almost immediately, the stock market hit some serious waves, we could say. It became super turbulent, very volatile, and of course, these conditions don't just affect Wall Street. They affect all of us with our investments and our retirement accounts. That's why I want to introduce a company that I trust and I use myself to help secure my own savings, American Hartford Gold. They specialize in helping Americans move their assets into something tangible, something you can actually hold, physical gold and physical silver. Two precious metals that help me sleep better at night, knowing that I have a hedge against all those brilliant decisions being made over in Washington. Now, they have an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. They have thousands of 5-star reviews, and they make the whole buying process super simple. Your metals can be shipped directly to your doorstep, or you can transfer your current retirement account to a tax-advantaged gold IRA. And the best part is that right now, American Hartford Gold is offering an exclusive buy one, get one deal for my viewers. When you call them and mention my name, Roman, for every 1 ounce of gold that you purchase, you can get 1 ounce of free silver. And so take advantage of this special offer. Either call 866-242-2352 or simply text Roman to 65532. That's again, 866-242-2352 or text Roman to 65532. I'll also throw their information. It'll be down in the description box below. The authorities were notified. The FBI launched an investigation, and eventually they uncovered the whole plot. Now, it took a while. It took roughly 3.5 years since the election, but eventually, in February of this year, these 3 men were arrested and charged with a litany of crimes, including conspiracy to commit voter fraud, giving false information in registering to vote, filing fraudulent voter registrations, as well as aiding and abetting. And by April of this year, so within 2 months, they all wound up pleading guilty. Which is also just wild if you think about it. I mean, these 3 men, they committed a combined total of 65 felonies because each fake vote is its own felony. But they still lost the election. So they literally don't have anything to show for it. And even worse than that, unlike many of the other voter fraud cases that we've covered on this channel. In this case, over in Millburn, Pennsylvania, the federal judge actually threw the book at these men. He gave them harsher sentences than what the prosecutors were actually asking for. In explaining for why he did this, meaning his rationale, Judge Harvey Bartell said the following, quote, "In the court's view, there are very few crimes in our federal code which are more serious than what you have committed. What you have done is undermine our democratic process." And as such, Mr. Hassan was sentenced to 3 years in prison along with 1 year of supervised release. Mr. Muhammad Islam was sentenced to 1 year and 1 day in prison, plus also 1 year of supervised release, plus he had to pay $1,700 in fines. And then Mr. Muhammad Mansur Ali, he was sentenced to 21 months in prison, 1 year of supervised release, as well as ordered to pay a $2,500 fine. The men are all scheduled to surrender themselves and begin their sentences in August, next month, middle of next month. And so there you have it. The story of a scheme to steal a local election over in Pennsylvania that not only failed, but failed in a spectacular fashion. Also, I didn't know where else in this episode to put this part, but in that interim period between losing the mayor's race and getting arrested, that was a period spanning over 3 years. And during that long period, even as you had federal and local investigations ongoing, and even as everyone in the community pretty much knew what took place, Mr. Hassan and Mr. Ali continued to sit on the council board. Here's how a local Pennsylvania publication described the situation. Quote, "Nearly 4 years after the election fraud and a month after the guilty pleas, a tense mood still hung over Millburn's 5-member borough council. 2 members resigned recently for reasons unrelated to the fraud case, which left only 3 members, including Hassan and Ali. Despite their convictions, the men refused to immediately resign and weren't legally required to do so." Although they did eventually resign. And by the way, I'll quickly mention that those 2 other members mentioned in that article who resigned for unrelated reasons to the fraud case, I looked them up as well, and those guys had to resign because they were also being accused of not living in Millburn. And so that's what's going on there. If you like to read the official court documents, which in my opinion are pretty interesting, they go into a lot greater detail of the scheme itself, how it was enacted, and how each voter was registered. If you want to check it out, I'll throw the links to the PDFs. You'll be able to find them down in the description box below. And also, I'd love to know your thoughts. If you live in Millburn, let me know if I missed anything. And if you don't live in Millburn, well, what do you think of this scheme of theirs? Does it show you how easy it is to misuse the voter registration online setup that Pennsylvania has? Or perhaps is the fact that these men were caught good evidence that the system does work well and the safeguards that are in place, well, they're functioning properly? I'd love to know your thoughts. Please leave them in the comments section below. I'll be reading through them tonight when the episode premieres, as well as into the week as more people watch the episode. And then, as always, if you haven't already for some odd reason, do smash those like and subscribe buttons so that this video can reach ever more people. And also by smashing that subscribe button, you'll be informed of any new episodes as soon as we publish them. And then, until next time, I'm your host, Roman from the Epoch Times. Stay informed, and most importantly, stay free.